Hello guys, it's Kene and I'm here today, not really with a problem, but I want to talk about a very important concept in programming. And what is it? It is the for loop. Now we know that loops, like in all programming languages, at least the ones that I know of, really, loops are used to do something repeatedly, right? So if I want to get and output all the numbers from 1 to 100, it's something that I need to do, like add one, output the give the output, add one to the result, give the output. So I'm doing the addition and the outputting, repeatedly, right? So that's something that is, something that you can achieve using the for loop. So guys, what is the structure of the for loop in Python? Very simple. So I have this, the for keyword there, for. Now, the for loop requires a tracker variable. So a variable that keeps track of the cycle. So the first iteration, that should be normally a 0. Second iteration, that's 1. Third iteration, that's 2. So that variable that keeps track of how many times we've gone through the loop, that variable should be created, and it could be named anything. So I'm just going to call it, let me just call it tracker, right? So for tracker, or let me just call it I, really. For I, now guys, this is what I want. I want to output all the characters in this string. So that's what I want to do for a start. So for I in this variable str. Now this string is simply a collection of characters. That's what the string is. So it's like an array or a list, whatever you want to call it, but characters all kind of joined, right? So that's a string. And this I is going to take the value of a given character at that particular, in that particular stage of the loop. So I, the first iteration will be A, I in the second iteration will be B. So I keeps changing its value. Now I need this colon. It's important, to have the correct syntax of the for loop. Then I need to indent. So whatever I'm going to put here, like code to be executed, has to be indented. So for I in str, simply print str. So you guys, what do you think? What do you think will get printed? All the characters here. So I will be A, first iteration, I is B, second iteration, I is C, third iteration, so on and so on and so forth. So let's see what that gives us. I run the for loop and we see that the characters get printed. Okay, so that's basically the structure of the for loop. For then the variable to keep track. Now this, in another sense, the I can be called the value of a member, of a collection. The value of a member of a collection. Now the collection here is the string variable here, the str. So every member becomes I at different stages of that cycle, right? Okay, so now can I also iterate through the values of a list? Yes, I can, using the for loop. And we'll see it's the same syntax. This time, instead of giving supplying the string to the for loop, I'll just use the list. This case now, this list, guys, 4, 9, 16, and so on and so forth. And you recall that in Python is a membership operator. So it simply tells that a particular value is a member of a collection. That's what that membership operator actually does, right? So let's see what the value of I gives us for every point in the loop. So 4, 9, 16, 25. So that's how it runs through all these values in the list. Guys, do you recall what this is? So it's the same thing it's going to be for L2. Let's just have a look at it. L2 very quickly. I'll see that the names get printed. So that's not too difficult. Now, guys, we could also use a for loop to iterate over the values in a tuple. Tuples in Python are like collections of data within parentheses, just like this, right? So this is a tuple. So the T there is the tuple, and I can print each of the values of the tuple using the for loop. So we see what that gives us. And that's the same thing for a set. But the difference between say, iterating over a set and over a tuple is this. You know that tuples are ordered, right? But elements in a set are not ordered. So when I use the for loop to iterate over the elements of a set, the members or the values are printed randomly, just at random. So they are printed in no particular order. Let's see if that's the case. So I give the S, this here is my set. Sets I include, values of a set I include in curly braces, right? So let's see. Yes, we can see that here the beginning value here is 7, then 14. But when the values are printed, I have 35, then 7. So how come the order is distorted, right? That's because where each time I have to use a set, the order gets distorted. That's the thing. And then talking about these data structures in Python, I'm going to use a dictionary in a for loop. So I have a dictionary here that I've set to D, right? And I can iterate through the values of that dictionary. Now, what gets printed? That's the question. You see that a dictionary, an item in a dictionary comes in this pair value structure. So this here is one item consisting of not pair value, key value structure. So the 2 here is the key and the 4 here is the value, and the 2 of them together make up an item. The same for 3 and 9. 3 is the key and 9 is the value. So you have this combination of key value pairs in a dictionary. Now the question is, when I loop through the items, like the constituents of a dictionary in a for loop, what gets printed in this case now? What will be the value of I as it changes, dynamically? Should it be the key or the value? Yeah, we see that it is the key that gets printed. The keys are printed, right? Okay, so I'm going to return to looping through the values of a dictionary much later in this tutorial. I'm going to go to using the range. The range method can take like 3 arguments. First is the start. So you know what the range is? Like a span. I like to think of it as a span going from this point to that point. So there has to be a beginning. So I'm going to use the range here, the range method, my for loop, and begin from 0. Now that's the natural thing for the computer. The computer starts counting from 0. But the thing is, you don't have to begin from 0. So I'm going to give 2 instances. One where the start value of the range method begins from 0 and the other begins from 1. So the start for this is 0. And I want to print all the numbers up to 100. Yeah. So 100 is the last number to be printed. Now, if I give the max value to be printed as 100 as an argument of the range method, we'll see if 100 is one of the numbers to, that gets printed. We'll see. 99 is the maximum there. So why is 100 not printed? Because we gave a range. So why is 100 not printed? Now, I think that, guys, if I would explain it this way, because it starts counting from 0, and I need to print 100 element, because I'm counting from 0, there will be a kind of -1 for me to have the 100 elements. Humans count from 1, but the computer counts from 0. So that's why I think that if I want to get 100 as part of the elements to be printed, then I need to give an extra 1. So please, guys, whatever is the max value that you want to use, please always add an extra. Just add 1 to whatever it is so that it takes -1 of the maximum value of your range parameter. So this is going to now print 100 as the maximum value, maximum number. Please don't forget this, is very important. If I want to print numbers that will end at 200, then I need to supply 201 as this second parameter there. Now, what if I choose to begin from 10? The same thing, guys. I can choose to start from 10. So it's going to run from 10 to 100. Let's see it. So your start value doesn't have to be the default value, which is 0. It can begin from any number. It can begin from anything at all, It doesn't have to be 0. All right. Now, guys, I said that the range method can take 3 parameters. So what's that third one? If you look at what the values that get printed, there's an addition, a progression by 1, right? 10 to 11 to 12, 13. So the step there is 1. But I can take the step to be some other value, say 3. So if I have 10 as the start value and I say, okay, add 3 to any successive value, right? So the step there will be 3. And I can give that as the parameter. So just this way, step equal to 3, like that, right? So let's see. You see, range takes no keyword. Now, because I said step, it doesn't mean that you need to put the word step. The computer understands that it is what? Python understands that this third parameter is the step. I don't need to name that parameter. Do you guys understand? So I'm going to clear this off and we'll see if there's going to be an error or not. So guys, please, you really need to be careful about this. Some arguments must be named. Some arguments of some methods must be named, and some do not require, named arguments. So Python understands that this is the step parameter. You don't need to name it. Now let's see if there's any error raised. None. So we see that it goes from 10 to 13 to 16. Now I want you to observe the trend. Plus 3, 10 plus 3, 13, 13 plus 3, 16, 16 plus 3, 19. So that's the step. Guys, talking about the range, we know that there can be a start, but that's not compulsory. If you don't supply any value, any parameter as a start value, then the default is used, which is 0. But there must be the compulsory argument there is the max value of that range. So I can decide to do away with the step. The default will be used, which is 1. And I can decide to do away with the start. The default is 0, but I must supply the max value of the range, right? So just this way, we see that it still gets printed the way we want it, beginning from 0, which is the default. And it increases by 1, which is the default step. Guys, let's understand it, please. Right. So after the range method, is there something like, I haven't seen this, just counting numbers. Is there some other way to use the range method? What if I want to get the count, which is like the I, the index, the position of a value in a collection, for example, a list. You know how we get the values in a list? Get the list, the name of the list, and in square brackets, provide the index. So if I want to grab 4 now, it's simply going to be, guys, you know, it's going to be something like L at position 0. So this is position 0, position 1. So the index starts from 0. That's how I can grab the value. So I can grab the values within my for loop by using the index here, which is like this counter variable, and the name of the list or tuple or whatever, any iterable. So instead of printing, so let me use range len. Because I'm not using the membership operator, I just want to get the indexes, right? Or what, you know, I should actually call the indices. I will use the len and, of course, provide the object there, which is the list iterable. Then it starts counting. Since the len will return the maximum number of elements in the list, you know, in this case. So if there are 5, how many elements do I have in L? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 7. So len, giving the argument of this list here, will return 7 for list L because there are 7 elements inside the list. So that's what the len will give us, right? And you know that the len gives us the actual count. But if I'm using my range in the for loop, it starts counting from 0. But we humans count from 1. So if there are 7 elements, I count from 1 to 7. That gives me 7 elements. But when the computer is counting, it's going to count from 0. Let me show us, guys. Now, a human being counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That gives us 7 elements. But the computer is going to count from 0. And for us to have 7 elements when the computer counts, then I have to do a -1 for each of the elements, right? So this will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So going from 0 to 6 gives us 7 elements. So we see that there's a -1. That is why, guys, the last index there should be len -1, right? I just wanted to point this out. But remember, when we try to get 100 as a maximum value, you know, when I was counting, getting the computer to count from 0 to 100, I had to provide 101. So one extra, one beyond what I should have as a maximum. So the len provides us that one extra. You know, like what we have here, 7 is what the len will return. But the max value when I'm counting from 0 is 6. So that's why I'm not going to use any -1, just the len. And that will give us all the values from beginning to the end of that my list. Right. So how do I now just get the element at every index? I'll just simply use the name of that object, in this case my list, and the index represented by I. So it goes from 0, L at position 0 will give me 4, L at position 1. So I goes from 0 to 1 next cycle, it goes to 2 next cycle, it goes to 3 next cycle. So that's what I will be. I is a dynamic value. Right. So I'm just going to print this. So let's see what that gives us. So we see that the values are printed 4, 9. So guys, please, I is the index beginning from 0. But if I want to grab the value in the object, then I need to use the name of that object, a list, for example, that is L here, and in square brackets, the index that is represented by this counter variable. I hope you understand. Right. So it's the same thing. I can also use len and my tuple there, call it T, right? So T at position, because tuples values in a tuple are indexed. So I can use the I counter in my for loop. So let's see. Again, all the values in my tuple from 6 to 18, all the values get printed, right? Like this. Right. So that's it about using the len within the range. All right, guys. So please let's not forget that. Now, going to the next thing I want to talk about, which is the break method. Now, imagine that I have these 4 names in my L2 list, right? So this time I'm done with the range for now. Done with the range method. I'm just going to use in my object. So the membership operator there now, I'm not looking at any counter variable. The I here. So I'm not looking at a range. I'm looking at the object itself, the values within the object. So I becomes a value within the object. So I in L2 means that I will be John in the first iteration. I will be Marie in the second iteration. I will be Jack in the third iteration, on and on and on. So guys, I am not going to use any indexing. I is just going to be, so let me just call this LM. I think that should be better. The element there, I have called LM. So let's see. So each of the names, gets printed. But guys, what if I don't want Jack printed? I don't want Jack printed. In fact, what I'm trying to do here is, okay, fine. Once I encounter Jack, I want the loop to stop. I want to exit the loop. So I don't want Jack and Anna printed. How do I do that? So breaking the loop before it has got to the end, right? So there has to be a sub condition, which, if is true, causes the loop to break, causes the loop to end. So I'm going to use an if statement there, an if clause. So if LM, right, has the same value as Jack, like that. You know, LM will take the form of John, Mary, Jack, and Anna. So at that point where LM takes the value of Jack, I want the loop to end. So this is like allergic to Jack. This loop is allergic to Jack. Once it encounters Jack, it needs to break. So how do I achieve that? I'm simply going to say, okay, if LM has the same value as Jack, loop break. So just use the break statement there, just like that. Okay. So you see that. So here again, because I want the elements printed, I'm going to indent this way, right? So it keeps printing. Oh, sorry guys, this shouldn't be the case. I'm just going to get this back. So it breaks only when element is or has the same value as Jack. Now, if it is not the case, so if this is not the case, it should just keep printing. Let's see the outcome. So you see that John and Mary gets printed, and then it encountered Jack at this point, encountered Jack, and the loop, ended. So that's it. It doesn't get to this line 14. So that's the use of the break statement to exit the loop before it has got to the initially set condition, right? Okay. Now, what of the continue statement? I have here the continue statement. What is it used for? Great. Now, guys, imagine this scenario. I don't want to end the loop when it encounters Jack. I just want it to skip Jack. Skip printing Jack and go on with the rest of the loop. It's not like the break that ends the loop completely. For continue, it keeps that what it should execute at that point. It skips it, but continues with the rest. Now let's see if it encounters Jack and there's a continue statement. What should happen? You would see that it is only Jack that doesn't get printed. Only Jack is not printed. It skips Jack and continues to what? Anna. And let's see. So we can see what the continue statement has done. If LM is Jack, just keep it. That's the use of this continue statement. Just keep Jack and go on with the rest of the loop. And the rest of the loop there is just Anna to be printed, right? Okay, thank you guys. Now, the next thing after the continue statement, I hope you understand the break and the continue statement. What about the enumerate method? It's a method here, guys, the enumerate method. If you look at my code here, let me just take this off, just print LM. If you look at my code here, you see that each of the names here gets printed, right? But I don't know what position each of the names occupies. But as a human looking at the screen now, I know that John is at, say, position, as a computer now, counting. John is at position 0 in this list. Mary is at position 1. Jack is at position 2, and Anna is at position 3. So -1, how a human being will count, just -1. So great. Now, how do I get the index of that element without initializing a separate variable outside of my loop? The enumerate, will do just that. The enumerate will do that job well. It gives us an avenue, an opportunity to get the index of an element in an object. So I'm going to use the enumerate here. And the enumerate will take the list, my list here. It can be L1, it can be L2, whatever it is. We'll take the list as an argument. So it's going to print the elements, which is like John, Mary, Jack, Anna. But in a tuple, it will give us the value, I mean the index and the value at that index as a tuple. So the element is not, this element is not just going to be the value, it will be the index and the value in a tuple. We'll see if that's the case, guys. So we see that at position 0, I have John. At position 1, you know, and on like that. So that's the use of the enumerate when you want to get the count or the index, if you want to call it that, of, you know, the values. Right. So guys, since I have the this LM as a tuple of index and value, can't I do something here now? I can use two variables in my in the condition segment of my for loop. That's what I'm saying. So let me just say the index standing for int here and the val standing for the value. So index and value. I can unpack. I can actually unpack the tuple here. So they become separate entities. And I can print. So I can print both the int and the val, just like that, using the enumerate, the int and the val. So let's see what that gives us. We see that this time it's not a tuple return, but separate values. Index and value, index and value, index and value, index and value. So guys, that's something that you can, you know, implement when you want both the index and the value. You can use the enumerate and create separate variables for each index and a value, right? Thank you. Now, guys, let's now look at the use of the zip with the count method. Now, to use the count, I need to import a module there, which is in this case now the, what do I call it now? From import now, just a moment, guys. Import count. What should I be trying to remember that? You know, you don't really have to memorize stuff. I don't usually do that, right? Memorize methods and you know, the syntax of the language. You can always look for my advice is know what you want to do and then get the resource, for example, online to complete your project, right? So the count method here is a member of the, what class should that be now? The Iterate tools. Okay, yeah, so that should be that. From Iterate tools, import count. Okay, so that's something that you can always get off the internet, right? And I'm going to use it here to do the same thing that my enumerate method has done here. But instead of using the enumerate method, I'll use the count method of, you know, this of Iterate tools. And that will also be like used within the zip method. Now the zip method will create a zip object, which we can actually iterate, you know, over. So let me just do that here. I'm going to use count, just like that. It's a method there. And what? My object, the list in this case, right? So I'm going to say L2. But guys, please, I am going to have them as argument of my zip method. So I want to zip the count of each of the elements in my L2 with the elements. So the count, that is like the index and the value of that item. So these are two parameters. The count as a method, which is going to keep track, kind of, it automatically knows the maximum number of elements in my list. It automatically can tell. So you don't need to explicitly state it. And that's all you need to do. So guys, let's see. So we can see here, I just supplied the count method as an argument of the zip method. And the second argument is the object that I want to iterate over, right? And then it just knows that, okay, first element, index 0, that's for John's. Second element, index 1, that's for Mary, and so on and so forth. So you see that this here is an alternative for the enumerate method. So I can use zip and the count method of iter tools, or I'll just use the enumerate method. It all depends on you. So guys, let me just have it typed out here. This time I don't want to use zip, I just want to use enumerate. So we can actually contrast the two, right? The same output we'll have for the two, just this way. Okay, so I think I should just comment this out. Comment this out. Okay. Okay, let me just have it this way and this way. Okay, right. Okay, guys, so what's the next thing I want to talk about? We've looked at the zip using the count method. Yeah, let me take this off here. I want to also show us something, guys. The counts, unlike my range, you know, the range method, if I need to state the step, I don't need to name that parameter. But if I'm going to use the count method of iter tools, then I need to name it. So I'm going to, you know, so when I'm using count method, the default is 0. That's for the indexing. It's 0. But I can explicitly state the start value of the index. And that's going to be start. You see that it's named start. And I say, okay, begin from 1. Then what's the step? So I'm going to mention the word step and set a value. So the step should be, say, 2. So we're going to see the output. So if I'm printing int and the val, we'll see what it gives us. So we see now that it starts from 1, and instead of having 2, I gave it a step of 2, right? So it adds 2 to 1 and gives it to Mary, and then add 2 to 3, that's 5, gives it to Jack. So please, I just thought I should mention it. So you do not really have to start from 0. If you want to be human, then you can assign a value of 1 to the start parameter of the count method. Okay, so guys, another thing that is close to what I've just done here with, you know, enumerate and the zip is using the items method where I have a dictionary. I want to iterate through the values of a dictionary. But this time I don't want to print just, so let's cast our minds back. When I try to print out the elements of a dictionary just using the for loop. Guys, let's see. Let me just delete this. For I in, or for LM this time, or LM in my dictionary this time, D. So LM is going to be what? You don't know. I'm not going to say for now. So just print LM. We'll see what gets printed. Wow. I should see 64, but why am I seeing like 2 to 8? So we can see that the keys get printed. But what if I want to print key value or just value? How do I do that? Provided it's a dictionary. Simple. I can just call the items method of the dictionary, just like this. And that's it. I can now iterate through the keys and the values. So I can now have ind for index, and then the val for the element itself. Now this is called unpacking. I'm trying to unpack or kind of separate keys from values, right? So I can just print something like this. The key is, and the value is. So just use the format method there and supply the parameters int and val, just like that. So here I have the string to print, and the placeholders, you know, this empty pair of of curly braces. So this first pair here is for the index, which is this end here, and this second placeholder is for the val, which is derived from here, this val here. So now let's print, guys, and see what that gives us. So we see the key is 2 and the value is 4. That's correct from what we have here. The key is 3 and the value is 9. That's correct from what we have here. And, you know, on and on and on it goes. So guys, this operation here is called unpacking. And that we have from using our items, the items method of the dictionary class. Okay? Yeah. Now, guys, nearing the end of this lesson. The last thing I want to talk about is the else. As part of the for loop construction, I can actually use the else. The else here now, it's not part of the if else structure. It is part of the for loop. What is its use when it's part of the for loop? The else there is used to, like, okay, fine, I want to execute a code when everything that needs to be done in the for loop has been done. Then I need to maybe do something, maybe leave a message when everything that needs to be done in the for loop has been completed, right? So in this case now, I have printed the key and the value in this for loop. Then I can use the else that is aligned in terms of margin, aligned with the for, right? So here now, else, align it vertically, with the for keyword, else. Now I'm just going to say within my print, of course, my print method, I'm going to say all key value pairs have been printed, just like that. So when everything that needs to be, outputted in the for loop has been completed, then in the else block of my for loop, I would leave a message. So now let's see what that gives us. So please, I want us to observe something here. All key value pairs have been printed. So that's what you have from this point. Okay, guys, now what if, just what if, right? I have, say, ind, the index now to be 4, like FOUR, and I want it to break when it encounters 4 as the key, not index, rather, I need to be careful, as the key for this 16, value 16. So 4 is a key in this dictionary. Now, when it encounters 4 as a key, it should break. Now, when it breaks, do you think that the else part of the code gets printed or gets executed? We're going to see, right? Just take it as a challenge. Think about it, and have your answers in mind, right? We're going to see. So if ind has the same value as 4, what should happen? Break. Now, the loop ends once it encounters this 4. Now, the question is, will this part of the program get executed? We shall find out. So let's run the program. Whoa. So the key is 3. So encountered key, that is 3. And then when it came to 4, it encountered 4, and then it realizes, oh, so the index at this point, the key at this point now is 4. And I'm told to do something when I encounter 4 as a key. I'm supposed to break out of the loop. So everything that is part of the for loop construction gets ignored. And that includes the else. Remember, I said that it's part of the for loop. So that's why it doesn't get printed. Right. Thank you, guys. I've come to the end of this lesson on for loops in Python. I hope you learned something. I encourage us to play the video again and just understand how the for loop works in Python. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and visit my website. On my site, you'll find other videos on Python for beginners. And then I also have videos that would help you, like in solving problems. So there are problem solving videos. You can take the challenge. You see a problem, think about it. Think about the thinking that goes into solving the problem. And then you see the Python code that actually solves it in code form, right? So those are the benefits you stand to get by visiting my website. That's www.thetutor8.com.ng. You find tutorials on other stores, PowerPoint. If you use Moodle, you work in a school or a company where assessment, is made, you know that there's a learning management system called Moodle. So the tutorials, I have tutorials on Moodle, that Moodle platform. Thank you, guys. I'll see you in my next video. Do have a great day. Bye.